Swindon Town won't be offering a first-team contract to the goalkeeper Luke McCormick. He was released from prison earlier this summer. He served half of his 7-year sentence for killing 2 boys in a drink-driving accident. McCormick had been training with Swindon. He was offered the chance to continue with Swindon's youth team, as well as working on community projects. But he's chosen to pursue other footballing opportunities. Luke McCormick's agent is Clive Hart. Good morning, Clive.
Morning.
You're an agent, so you make your living by taking a cut of your client's wages. Did you advise him not to stay at Swindon because there's no money in it?
No, it's nothing like that at all. If you mean no money for Luke or no money for me?
Well, both, because you only make money if Luke makes money.
Firstly, thank God I've got other projects going on this summer and last summer and January which will cover my expenses. So, you know, the situation Luke is in, making money from Luke McCormick is not a top priority for myself at the moment. The reason he's not staying at Swindon is nothing really to do with my money, and to a degree it's nothing to do with his money either.
Has Luke not been offered a contract at Swindon because they don't need a goalkeeper, or because he killed 2 children?
That's a tough question. Luke has been in there to train. That's been going on since January, as you're probably aware. My understanding from the chairman and from the football people at the club is that he's done well in training. Obviously, he joined in some of the pre-season with the youth team and with some of the fringe players. He obviously didn't go with on the trip to Italy, but the club didn't feel that the time was right to be able to offer him a contract. They weren't able to put a time scale on it either. They made a very good offer to Luke in terms of being able to go in and train with their youth team and development squad, and also to get involved in some community work. But unfortunately, on a practical level, it just wasn't something we were able to do.
What was the reason the club gave, then, for not offering him a contract?
They just felt the time wasn't right, really, at the moment. I mean, by the way, you know, I've certainly not come on the radio to criticise Swindon Town. In fact, quite the opposite. I think Jeremy Ray has been magnificent where Luke is concerned. I know Jeremy's taken a lot of flack from a lot of people. But, you know, you've got to understand as well that one of the reasons that Jeremy was prepared to take that flack is that he's met Luke McCormick and was very impressed with him as an individual. I think as well, Graham, you know, obviously Luke's had a lot of criticism in the papers and no one has been able to stand up for him up until this point, which is why now, you know, for the first time I've agreed to speak. Just simply because, you know, there is another side to things. You know, I can tell you the following, Graham. I looked after Luke McCormick from the age of 17. He was 24 when the tragic events of 2008 occurred. So I looked after him for 7 years during that period and got to know him very well, and can only tell you the following, that number one, he was a very decent lad who was never a minute's bother to myself. During 7 years at Plymouth Argyle, he never had any disciplinary issues whatsoever, inside or outside of the club. And if you were to go to speak to some of his high-profile managers, who Tony Pulis, Ian Holloway, Paul Sturrock, obviously the ex-Swindon manager, I think if you spoke to them off the record, I don't think you would find one of them with a bad thing to say about him. So you are basically talking about a pretty decent lad who obviously made one very, very tragic mistake with the worst possible consequences. And obviously he's been somewhat demonised in the press, mainly by people that have obviously never met him, of course.
Was Luke surprised by the national media's reaction to him training with Swindon?
Not really. Obviously, as I said to you, you know, I'm not a Johnny-come-lately here. I was involved with Luke at the time of the 2008 incident, and obviously it was front page of every newspaper when it happened, and, you know, Sky News and everything else. So, no, I expected there to be a backlash, or certainly attention given to Luke's training. So, no, I don't think it surprised us at all, really. Possibly, and it's not for me to say, possibly it took Swindon a little bit by surprise.
How has the experience of the incident in 2008 and the prison sentence, how has that changed, Luke?
I'm not sure. Well, you know, I've got to be very careful. You know, I don't really want to talk about the incident. I can only say to you that, you know, Luke, as I say, has always been a very decent young man. He's 28, well, in fact, he's just turned 29. I don't myself notice any huge changes in him. He was a fairly humble individual prior to the incident. He's a fairly humble individual now. He's always been grateful for any help and assistance he's had, and he remains that type of individual to me, really. I don't sort of see any big difference in him.
Does he still have a drink?
Does he still have a drink? Well, I think that's a slightly loaded question, because I'm sure you saw a picture that was in the Sun a few weeks ago.
Well, maybe you could clear that up for us. I mean, you know, obviously the tabloids are making out that he's, you know, almost as if he's out on a bender. I mean, what were the circumstances behind that?
My understanding, obviously I wasn't there, my understanding of the circumstances were that he lives down in Devon, and sort of took himself off, and it was, you know, of an evening, and went and had a drink. Now, I don't know where the photographer was who took the picture. I mean, obviously, if you've seen the picture, it looks like the photographer was stood right in front of him, but that just wasn't the case. You know, at the end of the day, he's fulfilling the, you know, the criteria of his license, really, and there's nothing in his license that says he can't have 1 pint of an evening. So, you know, I'm not quite sure where you're going with that, but no, he's not teetotal.
What do you say to people who say serving less than 4 years in a category C or D prison for killing 2 children and then being allowed to pick up his life where he left off isn't justice?
I really don't want to talk about the case, but I will only say this, is that prisoners are obviously given whatever sentence they're given. That's not decided by them. You know, it's not even as if he appealed the sentence and had it reduced. The sentence is what was given to him. He served his sentence. You know, talking as I did before about his behaviour and disciplinary situation, again, my understanding was he served his sentence in an exemplary fashion without any problems. So, in terms of being able to continue his life, well, quite clearly that's not the case, because I know from Luke not a day goes by when he doesn't think about the events of 2008 and, you know, the kids involved, as I say, although I don't want to go into that. And in terms of being able to carry on his life, quite clearly it's not as easy as you're suggesting, because for those people who haven't seen Luke McCormick play, I can tell you without sounding like a biased agent that Luke was one of the very best goalkeepers in the Championship in the 2007 season. And here we are, and at the moment he hasn't even got any offers from League One or League Two, so, and that's not going to be for footballing reasons necessarily. So you can't just say that he's come out of prison and just picked up on, you know, his life as was, because that's not the case. The reason he's not signing for Swindon has nothing to do with the fact that there's other offers. We're very hugely appreciative of everything Swindon have done for him, but the suggestion of coming in and training 2 or 3 times a week with the youth team on a practical level just doesn't work for Luke. So it's not that he's turned that down because there's other offers. We will have to see who's prepared to do what, really. I mean, I would only say this, and again, I don't want to go into details. The other footballers who have been to prison, some of them involving incidents where there were fatalities, have been given second chances by the world of football, and Luke, I suppose, hopes that he'll get the same opportunity.
So what are you hoping for, Clive?
I'm hoping that someone, and yes, it will take, you know, a brave chairman, a brave manager, that someone will give Luke an opportunity to get back into football. I mean, you know, you've got to remember this, Luke is actually not a Plymouth boy. Luke is from Coventry. I believe he moved down to Plymouth at the age of 15, 16, joined their youth setup. You know, football is the only job that Luke's ever had. And, you know, that's the career he wants to go back into. So that's what he wants to do, Graham. It's as simple as that.
Clive Hart, agent of the goalkeeper Luke McCormack. Good to talk to you this morning. Thanks for your time, Clive.
No problem.
It's the Graham Mack Breakfast Show, the home of School of the Week. Every week I adopt a school and get to know the teachers and the kids. This week, it's Peatmore Community Primary School in West Swindon. Emma, what is the Eurovision Song Contest?
Is there a prize?
I don't think there is.
That's a bit boring.
Well, yeah.
Is it like a sing-off for the 2012 trophy for the best singer of the pop?
It's more about the song. But, yeah, there are guest singers. And did anyone know that Jedward is in it?
Oh my god! I'm not watching that. I don't like Jedwards.
Jedward are representing the Republic of Ireland.
See?
Why? Are they from Ireland?
Because they're Irish.
They have...
Does anybody know who is representing the United Kingdom in the Eurovision Song Contest? Who do you think it is?
The Queen.
No, the Queen is not singing in the Eurovision Song Contest.
JLS?
Not JLS?
David Cameron?
It's not David Cameron.
Why would he sing?
I'll give you a clue. His first name is Engelbert. It is, that's...
Is that a real name?
Yes, his real name.
I thought it was I thought it was his second name.
I'll give you his full name. Would anybody believe me if I told you that the man representing the UK in the Eurovision Song Contest is Engelbert Humperdinck? That's his name. I'm not lying. That's his name. I swear to you, I am not lying.